My golden child sister wanted to reconnect years later after making my childhood a misery. I showed her how good my life has been without her in it and blocked her for good. Growing up, I was always in the shadow of my older sister, Rebecca. She was a quintessential golden child, brilliant, beautiful, and beloved by everyone. Our parents adored her, teachers praised her, and friends flocked to her. Meanwhile, I was the awkward, introverted younger sibling who could never quite measure up. From a young age, Rebecca took it upon herself to make my life a living hell. I remember countless instances where she would humiliate me in front of friends and family. There was a time she convinced me to wear an outfit that she had picked out for me, only for her to tell everyone at a family gathering that I looked like a clown. I was mortified. My cheeks burned with embarrassment, and I could see the smirk on her face as she reveled in my discomfort. As we grew older, the bullying became more subtle but just as painful. She would undermine my achievements, dismiss my interests, and constantly compare me to her. "You should really try harder in school. It's not that difficult," she would say, her voice dripping with condescension. I learned to keep my head down and avoid her whenever possible. When I turned 18, I made the decision to move out. I found a small apartment in a neighboring town, started college, and began to carve out my own identity. It was the first time I felt free. Free from her judgment, free from the weight of my parents' expectations, and free to explore who I truly was. Fast forward to a few months ago. I had just finished my degree and landed a job at a marketing firm that I was genuinely excited about. I had built a life for myself that I was proud of, filled with friends who supported me and hobbies that brought me joy. One day, as I was scrolling through social media, I noticed a message from Rebecca. "Hey, it's been a while. I'd love to catch up. I've been thinking about you a lot lately." My heart sank. After years of silence, she suddenly wanted to reconnect. I hesitated, staring at the screen with mixed emotions. Part of me wanted to respond, to hear her out, but another part of me felt a surge of anger. Did she really think she could just waltz back into my life after everything that had happened? I decided to take a day to think about it. I talked to my friends about it, and they encouraged me to stand my ground. "You've come so far without her. Why let her back in?" one of them said. They were right. I had spent years healing from the wounds she inflicted, and I wasn't about to let her back in to potentially hurt me again. After a night of tossing and turning, I crafted a response. I wanted to show her that my life had flourished without her, that I had built something real and meaningful. I poured my heart into a message, detailing my achievements, my friends, and the happiness I had found. I wanted her to know that I was thriving, not just surviving. "Rebecca, it's good to hear from you. I've been doing really well. I graduated with honors, and I just landed a job in marketing that I love. I've made some amazing friends and finally found my passion for photography. Life has been really good for me, and I hope it has been for you too." I hit send and felt a wave of relief wash over me. I was proud of the life I had built, and I wanted her to see that. But I also knew that I didn't want her to be a part of it anymore. A few days later, I received a reply. "Wow, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. I know I wasn't the best sister, but I've changed. I really want to make things right between us. Can we meet up?" Her words stung. Did she really think a few kind sentences could erase years of torment? I felt anger bubbling up inside me. I thought about all the times she had belittled me, all the moments I had spent crying over her cruelty. I realized that she hadn't changed. She was still the same person who had made my childhood miserable, just disguised in a different package. In that moment, I made my decision. I didn't owe her forgiveness, and I certainly didn't owe her a place in my life. I replied simply, "I appreciate your message, but I don't think it's a good idea for us to meet. I've worked hard to create a life that I love, and I'd like to keep it that way. I wish you all the best, but I think it's best we go our separate ways." After hitting send, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had taken control of my narrative, and I was proud of myself for standing up to her. A few minutes later, I blocked her on all social media platforms. It was liberating. I spent the rest of that day celebrating my freedom. I went out with friends, indulged in my favorite hobbies, and reminded myself of all the wonderful things I had accomplished. I realized that I had been holding on to the idea of a sisterly bond that was never truly there. In the weeks that followed, I felt a sense of peace. I was no longer haunted by the ghosts of my sister's bullying. I had finally closed that chapter of my life for good. Every now and then, I think about Rebecca and the memories we shared, but they no longer hold power over me. I've learned that family doesn't always mean blood. It means the people who support you, lift you up, and encourage you to be your best self. I'm grateful for the life I've built and the people I've surrounded myself with. I've learned to embrace my uniqueness, and I'm excited for the future. As for Rebecca, She's a part of my past, and I'm more than okay with that. On to the next story. My parents, who always saw me as a disappointment growing up, are trying to come back into my life to help them with financial trouble. Hey everyone, I'm in a bit of a dilemma and could really use your advice. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and my relationship with my parents has been rocky since I can remember. Growing up, they always made me feel like I was never good enough. Whether it was my grades, my career choices, or even the friends I had, nothing I did seemed to meet their expectations. I often felt like I was constantly walking on eggshells, trying to earn their approval, but it never came. Fast forward to today, and I built a life for myself that I'm proud of. I graduated college with honors, landed a decent job, and even managed to buy my own house. I thought that maybe, just maybe, my parents would come around and see me for who I am instead of who they wanted me to be. But that never happened. As I distanced myself from them, I found a sense of peace and freedom. I learned to love myself and embrace my quirks, and I was finally happy without their constant negativity looming over me. Recently, however, I received a call from my mother. She was in tears, explaining that my parents were facing severe financial troubles. They had made some poor investments and were struggling to keep their house. After years of silence, they were reaching out, asking for help. It was a shock to me. Part of me felt a twinge of sympathy, but another part of me was furious. How could they have the audacity to come back into my life after all those years of belittling me? I spent the next few days in a whirlwind of emotions. I found myself reflecting on my childhood, all the times I was told I was a failure, how they would compare me to my cousins or my friends. I recalled the countless family gatherings where I felt like an outsider, the way their disappointment would hang in the air like a thick fog. I had worked so hard to build my life, to recover from the emotional scars they left, and now they wanted to waltz back in as if nothing had happened. I decided to meet with them, thinking it might provide some clarity. When I walked into the coffee shop, my heart raced. They looked older, more worn down than I remembered. My dad, who once seemed so invincible, now appeared fragile. My mom's eyes were red from crying. They both apologized profusely, saying they were sorry for how they treated me growing up. They claimed to have realized their mistakes and wanted to make amends. I listened as they explained their situation, detailing how they had lost their savings and were on the brink of losing their home. They asked if I could help them out financially, perhaps lend them some money, or help them find a way to get back on their feet. While a part of me wanted to help, the other part screamed at me to protect myself from the pain they had caused. I spent the next few days contemplating my options. I could lend them money and potentially help them get back on track, but would that mean I was opening the door to more disappointment? Would they revert back to their old ways once they felt secure again? Or should I stand firm and refuse to help, allowing them to face the consequences of their actions? I spoke with a close friend about it, and she reminded me that it's okay to prioritize my own mental health. She asked me what I would want for myself if the roles were reversed. I realized I wouldn't want to be in a position where I was relying on someone who had hurt me deeply. In the end, I decided to offer them a small amount of money, enough to help them out of their immediate crisis, but not so much that it would put me in a difficult position. I also made it clear that this was a one-time offer, and I expected nothing in return. I told them that while I was willing to help, I couldn't be a part of their lives in the way they hoped. They needed to understand that trust and respect are earned, not given. It's been a few weeks since that meeting, and I'm still processing everything. I feel a mix of relief and guilt. I did what I felt was right for me, but I can't shake the feeling that I might have let them off too easily. So guys, what do you think? Did I make the right choice? Should I have been tougher on them? How do I navigate this complicated relationship moving forward? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for reading. What did you think of these stories? Let me know your thoughts about them in the comments, and thanks for listening.